I nearly cried out with surprise and pressed my hand to my mouth. He was quick, but I was quicker. At the last second, I grabbed his rough sleeve, yanked it back through the gap, and smashed his face into the door. His head hit the metal with a satisfying smack, and he wrenched against my grasp. I struggled to hold him, pressing my feet against the door for leverage and fumbling with the sharpened rock. I managed to push his sleeve up and stabbed the point into the fleshy part of his forearm, dragging downward to his hand. The guard let out a choked scream and thrashed, desperately trying to jerk free. I wrapped my fingers tight and pulled his arm with all I had, slamming his face back into the door. Again and again. His sounds grew more garbled, a suffocated whimper. My arms shook as I continued, sweat dripping down my neck from the exertion. I focused only on the singular violence of what I was doing, of what I needed to do to get out of here. Blood dribbled from the small square opening like crimson rain. Soon he grew silent and stopped completely. My fingers trembled as I released him. His body flopped down, lifeless, hitting the floor with a wet thud. The metallic tang of fresh blood nearly overwhelmed me, and for a minute I pressed my face to the cool stone floor, letting the stale air of my cell flow through my lungs. But soon the other guards would notice his absence. I sat up and pushed my arms through the opening of the door, running my hands along his torso, feeling his blood-soaked uniform until I found the metal loop of keys attached at his waist. I unhooked them, ready to combust from elation. Finally one of my plans was succeeding. I was going to get out of here. I was going to see my father again. The rusty keyhole took a few tries before it unlocked, the door snapping open with a click. I deliberately looked away from the bloody body as I grabbed his legs and dragged him back into my cell. Looking at him meant I might feel regret. The number of times the guards had hauled me out of my cell to be tortured meant I had no room left in my heart for regret. Not for them. Not for anyone. This time, I was walking out of my cell on my own terms, with my own 2 feet, stained with the blood of the guard I had just killed. I glanced down the hall, making sure it was empty, before stepping out and heading toward the door at the end. It was eerily silent, as if all the prisoners on my wing had collectively held their breath at my audacity in killing a guard. I glanced up to find a pair of dark eyes staring at me from the barred window on one of the doors. It would only be a matter of time before the alarm was raised. I had to move. I ran blindly, my bare feet slapping against the cold floors, sharp spikes of pain running up my thighs from the impact. I could nearly taste the fresh breeze on my tongue, smell the salty scent of the ocean on the wind. Possibility buoyed my steps, that I would actually make it out of here alive, that I would see my family again, that I would make him pay for what he did to me. Cells flanked my sides, and prisoners pressed their faces against the iron bars at the top of their door. They shouted and banged with empty ration pans. Soon, it was as if 100 of them were yelling at once, and I couldn't tell if they were jeering or celebrating that one of their own had made it out. If the warden were here, I might be more concerned, but with Warden Thofsa gone, security would be more relaxed, the guards lazier. This time I was going to get out. I unlocked the door to the outside, scrambling with the keys in my hand, the metal clanging like a terrible wind chime. Nothing could have stopped me as I stepped into the open air of the prison yard and into my freedom. Nothing except the row of guards waiting outside with the prison warden, their blades pointed straight at me.
"How fortunate that I returned early," came Thofsa's nasal drawl as she walked toward me. She wore her usual plum sherwani, the long coat billowing behind her, her thick hair braided in a crown on top of her head. Her mouth was a menacing slash across her face, and the deep lines on her cheeks stood out in the midday sun. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. I couldn't turn around. All that awaited me in that direction was my cell, but I couldn't fight my way out, not when I had a meager pebble as a weapon. And they, 6 sharp scimitar blades. I wished I had one of my old throwing daggers, so I could at least put up a